The question that we have from the client is whether or not the Bommer 7813HD will work on a 2-inch thick door. The answer is absolutely it will, and I'll show you why. Let's first take a look at the template that's here. Okay, so the template is showing us some important information. First of all, they want 1.5 inch radius on the edge of the door. Okay, that gap between the edge of the door and the jamb is 1/4 inch. Down here it shows what preparation you would make in the door, which isn't germane to determining whether or not it will work. And what also is unknown is what the margin would need to be on the latch style, so to speak, the end opposite of the pivot style. So the template's calling out for 1/4 inch over here, and ideally that would be smaller, like 1/8 inch. But let's get this into AutoCAD and let's take a look and see. First, before we do that, instructions are here. A lot of this is the same information. They do again call out the 1.5 inch radius. They do call out for 1/4 inch. So it's most absolutely going to work, but let's see if we can improve our margins a little bit, make them a little bit smaller, and determine exactly what would be needed. What's important to know before we get into doing this is where is the vertical axis of pivoting, and that's most definitely going to be this dashed line here. We know that because it is the center of the top pivot, and the vertical axis of pivoting needs to be the same at the top as it is at the bottom. So we know that our point of rotation will be 1.75 inches from the jamb, okay, or 1.5 inches over from the edge of the door because of that 1/4 inch margin. So let's get into AutoCAD and let's see what we can do. Let's start this right now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So the answer is the answer is to the question, will this work on a 2-inch thick door? Absolutely. So what I've drawn here is I have drawn 2 jambs as seen here. Let me get rid of my rotation. I've drawn a 3/4 inch measure quick. I've drawn a 3/4 inch by 4 7/8 jamb here. I have drawn another jamb over here, which is the same dimension. I've made it a 36 inch wide opening. The template calls out for 1/4 inch, so that means that my door is going to be 35.5. And to the question, does it work? Yes, let's prove that right now. So we're going to simply rotate. The first thing you do when you rotate is you select your object. And then you hit enter, and then you put your base point. Now you can see that we rotate. I'm rotating that entire object through the opening. So what's happening here is we can see it really elegantly here. Here's our jamb. 2-inch thick door, 3-inch thick door, doesn't matter. It's always going to work. The fact of the matter is you can see by studying the outside corner of the door where the radius right here. You can study that. It doesn't get any closer. The fact of the matter is you could make that, you've always got a 1/4 inch is the bottom line between here and here. You should be able to make that 1/8 of an inch. Same is true on the opposite end as well. We don't have any trouble with this whatsoever. You could make that radius larger if you wanted, getting a round over bit larger than 1.5 inches. I think 2 1/4. Actually, I know that maybe 2 1/2 might be the largest possible, or maybe 2 1/4 is, I forget. That's a really large round over bit. But you can see that this is going to work out just fine. Okay. Absolutely. That's all there is to it. It works. At the end of the video will be a longer version of this as well. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, if we go back to our template here, yeah, drawn by Jackson in 1998. Stuart Jackson was his name. The year is 2022. Bomber announced that they were ceasing operations much earlier this year. That's a shame. Bomber's been in business since 1876. Mr. Jackson, if you were to search for patents for Bomber and Jackson, you will find more than one. I've met the gentleman, and he's awesome. He's really great. Just a quick story about him to preserve the story. He was showing me their spring hinges. So an LB4390C is a contract grade solid stainless spring hinge. And he was absolutely singing the praises of the superior engineering and construction of the Bomber spring hinge. And he was giving me a tour of why that was the case. And the secret sauce is the way that the spring is designed. It's a spring, but it's a square profile style spring. And it's interesting that when you would email him with a problem from a client, he would know what they did wrong immediately. His intimate knowledge of spring hinges is complete. So I asked him, because we were in the shop at Bomber, we were in the engineering department specifically, the workshop, and they had a machine running a test on a spring hinge because ANSI was coming by to do an inspection. And I asked him how many cycles this hinge survived, and his answer was, I don't know. I unplugged the machine at 7 million. Okay. Grade 1, the heaviest grade, is 1 million cycles. So a fun little story there. The last part of this will be showing you the details about how I built that AutoCAD. If you have any questions on these applications, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So at the end of the video here is where I show exactly how I go about determining if it will work or not, and going through the process. So when I use AutoCAD, I like to just set the origin as my 000 location, and then place everything in relationship to that point. It's easier for me to draw. I am absolutely not extremely proficient with AutoCAD. Let's draw a polyline. So I have my grid set up. I have my major lines every 4 lines. My minor lines are a 1/16 of an inch. So 2 major lines would be a 1/4 inch. So my origin is 0, 0. I'm going to set my jamb, my outside corner of the jamb, at 0, 0, and line. And what we'll say is that this jamb is, let's just say it's 4 9/16, just for the sake. Yeah, well, let's not say 4 9/16. Let's say that it is a commercial application where it's 4 7/8. 4 9/16 would require, if I'm going to put my pivot right in the center, would require a 32nd of an inch, and my minor lines aren't set to a 32nd of an inch. So let's say that we're at 4.875 is going to be the length of our jamb. Yeah, and then we're going to make it 3/4 inch thick, our jamb, 0.75, We're going to come down here and make it 4.875. Oops. 4.875. Then we're going to come back to here to 3/4. And there's our jamb. It just so happens to be that our origin is right here. Just ignore that. So the bottom line is this rectangle represents our cased opening frame. Measure, distance, measure, quick. Yeah, quick. So we've got a 3/4 thick jamb that's 4 7/8. Okay, real simple, real straightforward. Now we're going to draw a 2-inch door, and we're going to put that right in the center of the jamb, the center of the thickness of the door, which means if this is 4 7/8, let's do some quick calculating here. If it's 4 7/8, we want to go to the center of the jamb. That's going to be 2 7/16. So my 2-inch thick door has to be 1 7/16 up from the origin point, and then a 1/4 inch over. So 1 7/16, and the point of the matter is, when I create my line here, I'm gonna give it its first point from the origin. So we know that it's a 1/4 inch, so it has to be a 1/4 inch away from the jamb. And then we know it's going to be 1 7/16. Center line of a 2-inch thick door on a 4 7/8 jamb is 2 7/16. It's a 2-inch thick door, so I'm going to subtract 1 inch. So I know that I'm going to be at 0.25, and then I'm going to be at, hang on, polyline. Let's start it at 0.25, and then we're going to make it at 1.4375. So that's our first point. A 1/4 inch from the jamb. It is 1 7/16 from the origin. The center would be 2 7/16. And then the outside of the door would be 3 7/16. So we know that our door is 2-inch thick. We're going to leave it square edge for right now. We're going to say that the door is 35 3/4. Then down here to 2-inch. And then back over here to 35 3/4. Now, what we have is our door in the jamb. I'm going to build another jamb over here as well. I could copy that, but let's just draw a new polyline. Let's put it at let's do this. Let's say that we have a 3-foot opening. We're going to make the door 35.5. So I just shrunk that by a 1/4 inch so that my inside jamb opening can be 36 inch. So let's draw another polyline. Let's give it our origin point at 36. Okay. At 0. Okay. Now we're going to go 4 7/8. We're going to go 0.75. We're going to go 4 7/8. And then we're going to come back to 0.75. Now we've got something that kind of looks like an opening. Measure, distance. Yeah, my jamb is not in the right place because my door is actually a 1/16 too large. So let's just move that right there. Okay, now it looked odd to me, so I measured it. So we've got a 1/4 inch margin here, and you'll note that I've drawn a square edge door. That's going to be okay. We're going to figure that out in a moment. Okay, so the next thing to do is to make this door look radiused. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle right in the center of the thickness of the door, which is going to be at 2 7/16. It's going to be at 1 3/4 inches, and then 2 7/16 will be the origin. Now 1 3/4 is from the jamb over, and the jamb is the y axis on the origin. So we know it's going to be 1 3/4 over. It's at 2 7/16 from the x-axis because that's the center of the jamb. So I'm going to draw my circle to the point where it just ends up there, and then I'm going to do it over on the other side as well. This is going to need to be at circle 36, so it's going to have to be at 34 3/4, and then it's going to be at 2 7/16 from the x-axis. There's our next. Oh, that didn't work out right. Let's try that again. We know that we're going to be at oh yeah, that was the mistake. I should be at 34 1/4. $34 1/4, and then 2 7/16. Yeah, that looks better. All right, now, and I realize there's more than one way to do this. You're dealing with somebody who's not expert when it comes to this. So I'm going to click Trim, and I'm going to get rid of the components that my door doesn't need. So now I've got something that's starting to look like a door opening. We've got a 2-inch thick door. It's a 3-foot wide opening. Because of the template calling out for a 1/4 inch here, I'm going to put a 1/4 inch here. It's looking really tight, really good. So now the client's question is, will it work? Will it work? Okay, so now all we're going to do is we're going to rotate this item, and that's really easy. Rotate. You then select your objects, and what you have to do is you've got to grab all of these pieces, because I've not turned them all into, okay, so everything is highlighted. I had to highlight all of the items because I didn't join all those parts together. I should, but we're good. We've selected the objects. We're going to hit enter. We're going to specify our base point, which is going to be 1 3/4 from the jamb, and then at 2 7/16. That's the center of the thickness of the door in the jamb. Okay, now I'm going to turn off my polar and my grid. So the question here is, the client's question is, will it work? You bet it will. Of course it will. The point is that the relationship of the 2-inch thick door doesn't really change really anything. You could have a thicker door. The point of the matter is, when you have a thicker door, that radius is just going to continue on. So you could have a 3-inch thick door, it's still going to work. Now the question, let's do that one more time just to look at the entire opening. So rotate, select your objects. I've got it all there. Enter. Your base point is going to be at 1 3/4 and then 2 7/16. At no point do you really get any closer to the jamb than necessary. In fact, you could certainly make a much smaller radius on the edge of the door. You can see as we move that through there, you could probably get away with a, I don't know, probably a 2 1/4 inch radius. It's probably what you could get away with. And we could easily test that by just changing the radius of the circle and then rotating it again. The issue, though, is you don't need that 1/4 inch. That could be 1/8 of an inch. The way it was drawn by probably Stuart Jackson from Bommer calls out a 1/4 inch. So that's what your template says. I would make it 1/8 of an inch. Now, having said that, the guy who drew the template drew it a 1/4 inch for a reason. And the guy who drew the template has forgotten more about spring hinges than most people will ever learn. The man's a true genius. He has several patents in his name. So he drew it for a reason at 1/4 inch. I would personally make it 1/8 of an inch. And hopefully I didn't find out why he drew it at a 1/4 inch. So that's the short answer. Right there. Okay, so let's wrap up this video. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you. Thanks to our clients, Architectural Builders Supply is building an additional facility, and what follows is not only a look at the acreage that we're building the facility on, but also first the architectural renderings as they exist, or at least the architectural plans as they exist at this time. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the architecturals as they exist at this moment, or at least it wouldn't be proper to call these architecturals, but it would be proper to call them renderings in the sense of they're conceptual drawings, they're not renderings. So the entire space is going to look like this in terms of a site rendering. This will be a 22,000 square foot building, of which will have specific purpose areas. There'll be a workshop down here. This is a few thousand square feet. That will be likely woodworking, metalworking, CNC, things of that nature. This will be an office area here, a private office area. This will be Architectural Builders Supply expanded storage area where we will be able to do fulfillment. The entire space in the center is going to be all of the volume, as I call it. Large components will be able to be stored in stock there. Machinery that's too large to fit otherwise may be put out here. Specific facility rooms, and then some recreation over here. Let's take a look at that drone footage, and thank you very much for taking a look.